continue. I think it's not Friday, it's Thursday, but we continue the technology conversation now with a new report from Heirs Technology, which of course looks at the artificial intelligence and how it can boost GDP in Africa, with an estimate that's been gathered around about $2.9 trillion, possibly adding to the GDP. We're going to look at a number of metrics from this new report with respect to data centers and also, talent and what this means for the African continent. I'm very happy to have Mr. Obong Idiong, who is the CEO of Heirs Technologies Limited, joining us on the show. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great report. I enjoyed reading it. A lot of insights in there. And I guess I wanted to start out with, so this is the title, Africa's Digital Leap, Cloud Connectivity and AI in the Next Decade. So first off, to get your thoughts on the 2.9 trillion that it is believed can be added to Africa's GDP. You confident in that? That's a big number, especially by 2030. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, currently we're looking at contribution of already 5.5% to the GDP from the digital economy. And if you look at, it's largely coming from a productivity and an adoption play. If you look at what's happening in the agricultural sector today, we see where their predictive analysis, which is one of the largest AI use cases today in the African continent. And then look at what's happening within the financial services sector also, where we see fraud prevention, and we also see different models of financing happening, and if you look at the energy sector, where we see predictive analysis. So we believe that looking at the connectivity, solving the infrastructure issues, bridging and closing out we have a huge population of very young Africans, 60% below the age of 25. And with those talent and skills, we see where there is a lot of opportunities. Again, an adoption play where more people will be brought in to the financial services, and also a productivity play.
Perfect. Now, so we're displaying this on the screen for our viewers, and at the top right, for folks that are looking at the image, it shows that data center from the African continent is exactly what you're looking at. Less than 1% of global data center capacity for 2025. You confident we can get to 2.9 trillion? Because data centers we cover this almost every day, right? They are the heart and soul of the AI scaling story. So, I'm just trying to marry, possibly getting 2.9 trillion by 2030 with less than 1%. I mean,
The root is very, very important. Very nice question. But you see, we do not need 10% capacity. I mean, Africa is currently 19% of the total global population. 1% correct, right? But we do not need 10% because we're not building AI. We're not building AI models. We are not building those, investing in those large GPUs. What we just need from what we currently have are tools that can drive productivity and make these businesses productive, and tools that can also support the ecosystem and create a lot of value creation within that ecosystem. And so if you look at the current data center capacity totally across Africa, is between 450 to 500 megawatts, but there are plans currently in the pipeline before the end of the decade, 2030, to add 1.4 to 1.7 gigawatts.
That's a lot. Now, speaking of gigawatts, the report has a map of Africa, perfect, showing spending, right? And we've got Nigeria to about 248 million or so, South Africa at the bottom there, 413, and then the others, Egypt, the Tunisias of this world, and then Kenya, of course, in that region. This spending is, I mean, when you compare it to some of the news we're getting from the West, I know I probably shouldn't be comparing the West to us, but is this for this to be increased? You confident we can increase these figures? And is it really a money issue for much of these countries?
Yeah, for the investment, I would say yes. Short answer is a money issue, because and it's also a readiness issue. From the side of the money issue, we see where within these countries that are highlighted, Nigeria, Kenya and South Africa, we see where there's large capex, where the organization, where there are enterprises that can actually invest in some of these cloud solutions, sort of the data infrastructure. We also see where the local VC is active and there's some investment there. And finally, we see where there's an ecosystem that can, capture that. But from the readiness point of view, we see where they have already data privacy laws. We see where there's some level of infrastructure growing, and we also see where, again, the ecosystem is able to support and capture. But we're seeing growth around like Egypt and Ghana and Morocco. We're seeing some growth. But yeah, it's a big money issue and also a readiness one.
Okay, you mentioned that the increase of, I think it was 1.7 or 1.6 gigawatts, right? I'm glad you mentioned that. So this was, by the way, generated by ChatGPT, and we talked about this earlier, with respect to the deal between Advanced Micro Devices and OpenAI, where they plan to build out about 6 gigawatts or so. And we compared it to, at the bottom right there, Nigeria's output of 5. We peaked at 5,800 megawatts, which is 5.8 gigawatts. Essentially, this is more than our electricity output if it gets to its peak. The energy demands of data centers, and by the way, we have to get to what Heirs Technologies is doing, because I know you guys are in this space. You know, the electricity demands are a lot. With Africa, where you've got an estimated 600 million people or so that don't have power, you've got the whole power issues. Do we have the capacity to build that out? What are your thoughts on the energy, electricity, and I think water as well, because these things need to be cooled. All right, so
the different solutions to that. So that we already see investment. We see modular data center being invested. We see modular from around 1 to 20 megawatts. We already see that happening. We also look at where there is a lot of renewables that can happen. And you talked about water. You know, we're told, we say Africa has about 60% of the solar capacity. We can, harness those solutions.
Yeah.
And also, we're also seeing where there's edge. We're also seeing, the modular data centers around different regions. And for us, for right now, as Heirs Technologies, we're speaking with a company like Transcorp Power, where we can now place a data center around
that
there.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then, reduce all the lost, power that is there, and reduce the transmission, pressure. And also with a company like Heirs Energy, where they have millions of scuffed gas in reserves, and we're looking at placing those modular data centers there. So that can really drive and change energy, and that's what we're seeing a bit around the continent.
I see, it makes sense. The family of under the conglomerate working together. All right, now there's another chart that looks at this. I believe is adoption, right? With respect to these numbers, so we've got 55% here that are majorly on the cloud, 17% that are fully on the cloud. I know you want to get this number up here. And then you've got about 26% that are experimenting, and about 2% that are not on the cloud. Do you think these numbers can increase going forward? And I have a question about the cloud provider, because I know you're partnering with a number of the hyperscalers,
Correct.
right? But first of all, you think these numbers can go up?
100%. Right now, they're going up between 25 to 30% on a year-on-year basis. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
great. So I was reading a report. Heirs Technologies, you're partnering with the Microsofts, the Azures, and so you've got there's Google, there's Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services,
Correct.
right? There has been this debate about whether indigenous cloud providers can meet the demand for what you want to see scaled out, or we just work with the foreign providers. They have the scale, they have the deep pockets, they have the capacity. So tell us what you're doing. Tell us what you guys are doing, and what do you think? So what do? We go indigenous or partner with the people that already have the capacity to increase this?
I think it's a genus of ant, right?
Okay.
Both of them. We see local indigenous players. Yes, I'm trying to scale. They're scaling more on a daily basis. They're providing that capacity, and they solve some problems. And then with the investment of the foreign and the big players, the big tech, we call them, with the technology that they bring, with the R&D, and, we are also looking at opportunities in partnering. So it's largely a hybrid approach where you partner with one, and then you scale with the other. But we're seeing growth from the indigenous ones.
Okay, perfect. You're seeing growth from the indigenous ones, but do you? Okay, look, I'll be very honest with you. I don't. The money that's Alphabet, Microsoft, these are companies that are in the 3 trillion market cap range, right? Do you think at some point that the indigenous players can handle this, or going forward, is it just a partnership?
Hybrid. But it's important that while it's hybrid, it's important that, because looking at today, the long-term digital data sovereignty and long-term value creation must be controlled locally.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're looking at, yes, a hybrid approach and seeing how we can grow, but we must control the sovereignty, and we must also control the value creation locally, because that is how we can really scale as a continent.
So what about I know you're doing enterprise enterprise services, right? So talk about that. That's
Yes, for us. Yeah, for us at Heirs Technologies, we're looking at how to bridge the digital gap. I think we talked about a lot. We've just spoken about a lot of gaps and challenges, but we see them as opportunities, and we're doing that in fourfold. The first one is investing, and we talked about the investment in the infrastructure, the core infrastructure, AI and cloud. Through our managed services, AI and cloud data centers, and the like. And the second approach is talent. Right now, this year we train 100 young Nigerian engineers on AI and cloud for free, 3 months. So talent is very, very critical to move and scale. The third one we're looking at is how do we now modernize and optimize the governments, the businesses that are our clients. How do we now get them AI ready? How do we now get them to move some of those critical data infrastructure to the cloud for scale? And then finally, we're also building solutions that meet the African gap, that are digital first, that are inclusive first, and that are affordable.
Okay, perfect. Because and this is what we need, right? So it's good to hear a private sector player that is training engineers in order to get there. The Digital Economy Ministry under Dr. Bosun Tijani, they're doing 3MT, which is where they're trying to get those 3 million software. Okay, so I have to ask you about this. I always want to ask the players in the sector. This projected market size of AI, I mean, that's Africa right there, the little red dot. And of course, this is North America, that is Asia, and it's also the difference here, 91 billion versus 85. So that's what, 6, 7? So, and then there's Europe. What's it going to take to get this circle? And again, this is from your reports, and you're pulling from data that's out there. Okay, this is, who's that? Australia and Oceania down there. What's it going to take to get our circle bigger?
Investment in infrastructure.
So money.
Yes, investment in infrastructure like we're doing now.
Yeah.
Clear, policies, very forward-looking reform policies.
Yeah.
And breaking the gaps that exist across Africa in terms of doing business, and also the talent. If you build the right talent, you put the investment there, and the private sector, having very, very clear,
goals, right?
Collaboration goals. I think that we can definitely break that divide. Again, like you said, we're seeing it growing. We're seeing the growth from 2019. Contribution was about 3.8, 100 billion. We're seeing that has leaped to 5.5% on contribution of GDP, which is 180 billion, and that's massive.
Okay, so what about jobs of the future? What camp are you in? Are you in the camp, because we just played a clip in the prior segments where the CEO of Warner Music doesn't believe that AI will displace artists. He thinks that it's going to the value of the whole jobs matter. You talk about training engineers. What do you think AI is going to displace jobs, or you think so you're training? So okay, this is a perfect example. People say you're not going to lose your job to AI, you will lose your job to somebody who knows how to work with AI. So with you training, with Heirs Technologies training these engineers, is it the engineers that don't know how to use the AI that lose their jobs, while the ones you've trained? What's your view on jobs and AI and jobs going forward?
I think it's almost like, remember the Industrial Revolution, right? When we saw machines coming in and everything, increased productivity. And once increased productivity happens, we see a lot scale within the economy. I think that, in some jobs that are very repetitive and everything, those are easy, those might go. But what that does is that it now also builds, it now also gives the opportunity for the employee to go and scale themselves more in doing things that are more...
so continuous learning.
Correct. And we're seeing a lot of that happen now. And also, again, there are a lot of skills. I mean, AI needs people. Like we talked about talent. It needs people. There's so many aspects of it. And it's not just AI in isolation. There's cloud, there's AI, there's data, there's cybersecurity, there's a lot of infrastructure, there's DevOps, there's a lot of engineering roles, and we're beginning to see where, doing a lot of more productivity and productive work. And I think that would really scale. So I don't think that I'm not on the camp where, it's going to lose jobs. I'm on the camp where we'll become more productive and we'll do more things that matter.
And create more jobs. All right, so I guess, I'll just round off this final question for you. What do you want the takeaway to be from, I guess, government or private sector? Or I think maybe more government from reading this report. What do you want the main takeaway to be from it? The crux of the report, I guess.
I think it's for everybody around the ecosystem. I think the government continues to play the role, providing the relevant infrastructure. That's how we're able to scale, and supporting the ecosystem. Private sector also has a huge role to play in terms of continuing with innovation, attracting the capital, right? And of course, talent is a big part of it, continuing education in terms of how to school and how to build the next workforce for the future.
Fantastic, fantastic. Can I just say that so far, standing on, you're my favorite guest because you're just incredibly active. And I see the energy and passion. Mr. Obong Idiong, he's the CEO of Heirs Technologies. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for
Thanks for talking to us about this report. Everybody should download it and read it.